plan. So.
Okay, Paul, you're all set.
Okay, here we go. Welcome everybody to the Rocky Mountain SABR's monthly virtual meeting here. We have a very interesting topic today we want to get to as soon as we can. We have a discussion on I got to be very careful with my words here because Dan Evans is sitting on every word. We're going to be discussing non-major league professional baseball in Colorado. How's that there? But first, Scott Carter of the SABR National Office, and I hope I get your title right. You are the CEO?
Not Scott Bush. I'm the executive vice president. So just
did I say Scott Bush? Oh, okay. No, well, Scott Carter of the National Office would like the floor for just a few minutes. But happy holidays to everybody. And Scott Carter, take it away.
Well, thanks, Paul, and everybody for having me. If I haven't met you, I was on last month's meeting, but looks like a lot of faces that weren't there last time. So hi from Phoenix. Hopefully everybody's doing great where you are. Really quickly, don't want to take up too much of your time, but did want to promote our SABR Day coming up next January. And just if everybody hasn't seen that programming announced yet. So as we kick off our 50th anniversary of SABR next year in 2021, SABR Day on January 30th, which is a Saturday, will be our kind of unofficial kickoff event for our 50th anniversary celebration. So we've got an exciting lineup planned if you haven't seen it already. So Bob Costas from MLB Network, broadcasting legend, will have a conversation with Bob Costas. We will also have a conversation with Baseball Hall of Fame President Tim Mead, as well as some nice videos and features from some SABR members, high-profile SABR members from around the country. So it's going to be a nice 2-hour programming block. We're excited to hopefully have as many SABR members from across the country join us as possible, so we can have that big kind of kickoff celebration for our 50th anniversary. So again, January 30th from 2 to 4 Eastern. You can sign up at sabr.org/SABR Day. Registration is free to all members. There's a $10 fee for non-members. So if you've got somebody who you want to introduce to SABR and the organization, we encourage you to do that. But we do need you to register at sabr.org/SABR Day so we can get your email address dialed in, so we can send you the link when we're ready to push that out. We will open up some questions for Bob Costas and Tim Mead a few weeks before we have the event. So just if you got any questions in mind, jot them down, because we will open that up for questioning. So we'll have a mailbag. But yeah, so Bob Costas, Tim Mead, SABR Day, January 30th. Hope you see you all there. That's all I got. Shout out to Ryan Spillborghs and Go Gauchos from a fellow Gaucho. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Go Gauchos. And we got a Cy Young Award winner this year, so we're good.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I had one quick question. Is there going to be like a limit of number of people that can get on that virtual call on January 30th?
We'll push the limits of our account. We'll try to get as many as we can and crash the thing. But now we should be fine. We've got more than enough capacity, and we're trying to get as many members as we can. So we hope to see you guys all there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Scott. Alex, I'm going to go right to Dan Evans, who's going to be our moderator for this session. And I want to welcome our guests, Chris Phillips and Ryan Spillborghs, and our own Christopher Moyer. So Dan, take it away.
So Alex, we're good now, right?
Yep, we are. Sorry, I will assign. Keep going. I will assign you as co-host as you do your presentation.
Outstanding. Welcome everybody on this cold December day. I hope you're doing well. On behalf of the board, we are really happy that you would participate in today's virtual meeting. Really thankful that Kurt Wells is doing healthy after a bout of COVID. Good to see you back doing well, Kurt. Also want to congratulate Chris Cohen, one of our SABR members. Chris just graduated or is about to graduate from Lynn University. He's a SABR intern. He's graduating with a degree in sports management. And I'm a big Chris Cohen fan. And Chris, I'm really happy for you. Congratulations. For the first time in more than 8 decades, the state of Colorado does not have affiliated minor league baseball in 2021. It's pretty remarkable. Baseball's been played here in Colorado since April of 1862. The first Colorado stadium was actually built in Colorado Springs in 1882. Major League Baseball's gone through some drastic changes in the last couple of weeks. It's been rumored for months, for almost a year, and they eliminated 42 club affiliations last week. Now teams are limited to 4 affiliates per organization, 120 overall teams. The Rockies will have Albuquerque, Hartford, Spokane, and interestingly enough, in a let's say a late move, Fresno, and Colorado Springs and Grand Junction are no longer affiliated minor league baseball teams. 2 of our attendees today started their pro careers, their pro baseball careers, which teams that were eliminated last week. Herb Shankman, the 1951 Bluefield rookie. Bluefield's no longer an affiliate. And Ryan Spillborghs in 2002, he started his career with Tri-City. So 2 of our pro players on this call, their first franchise is no longer an affiliated club. Today, we're going to discuss the new Pioneer League, its look, what it's all about to help you, inform you, along with the recently announced Future Sports Legends Complex. So let's get to our guests. First of all, Chris Moyer is a senior producer for KRDO Radio in Colorado Springs, a SABR member. He's been a team historian for Colorado Springs since 2008. And this discussion today is actually Chris's idea. So nice going, Chris. Chris Phillips is the president and general manager of the Rocky Mountain Vibes. Chris is starting his 10th year in Colorado Springs after stops in Altoona and State College, PA. He's a PSU grad. Chris, welcome to the conversation today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And finally, Ryan, he wore a sport coat. Boy, he's showing us all.
No, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Sorry.
Chris, I should have gone over the wardrobe. You actually need a tie for your actual presentation.
Got it.
The third guest is Ryan Spillborghs, parts of 7 seasons with the Colorado Rockies, one of the greatest pinch hitters in baseball history. You know him now as an AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountain analyst. He's on the Sirius XM MLB Network radio. Spilly hit 272 in his career and hit 306 at Coors. Spilly, I looked it up today, 305 career pinch hitter in 209 plate appearances. That is awesome. Thank you for joining us today, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so to fill everybody in, and what's great is our 3 guests all have input. So this is going to be a very loose process where I'm just asking you to chime in when you're comfortable with certain questions. Chris Phillips, obviously this most affects you running the franchise as the president and GM of the Vibes. The Vibes went through a lot of change in the last few years. Going from AAA, going to the Rookie League, supposed to host the All-Star game in 2020, COVID hits, and now you're in a situation where you're in the Pioneer League in a different role. Was this the best possible outcome in December of 2020?
Well, that was a hell of a way to open, Dan, so I appreciate it. But yeah, yes, you and I talked briefly yesterday, and we are very happy with where we're at right now, in lieu of everything that's been going on and all the uncertainty that surrounded the future of the league, the future of our franchise. Like you said, we had just gone under this major transformation, which was challenging enough in itself, and we kept telling our community in the city, 19 was going to be a prove it year for us. And we had to prove to the community that this was a high level of professional baseball, and that the experience at the ballpark was going to be just as good, if not better. And we nailed it. I mean, we had a great year. We outdrew. Our per game average was higher than it was in 18, our last year as a AAA with the Sky Sox. And we were so pumped for 20, and then dealing with the challenges that COVID put us all in. And, then dealing on top of that with everything that Major League Baseball is going through with negotiations on the minor league baseball side of things. As a Pioneer League, we knew that we were in a really tough spot, and we had to be proactive and figure out a way to come up with a solution to keep this league alive, to keep professional baseball in all of our cities in the Rocky Mountain region. And I think that what we've come up with, and Spilly, I'll let you tag on, but I'm excited. I think it's something that's definitely a sellable product. The response that we got from the community was really encouraging, and it's going to be different. No question about it. It's going to be a lot of new challenges and just new business models that we're going to have to look at. I think I put together, I told you, Dan, yesterday, probably 2 dozen different budgets for the 21 season based on all the different things that are going on. And the one that was approved by our ownership, I think is workable. And we're going to have to see how it goes.
So before you chat, I want to give everybody a little idea of one of the reasons you're on the call, and we'll turn back to the Pioneer League in a moment. But Ryan's part of a group that's building an incredible, and I mean seriously incredible, sports complex. It's going to be called the Future Legends Sports Complex in Windsor. Windsor's up around Greeley, Fort Collins, Loveland, north of Boulder, and 56 miles from home plate at Coors Field. A 118-acre sports complex that'll have baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, indoor 4-acre bubble, 20 outdoor fields. I love the fact that you're adding a miracle field, Spilly. I think that's awesome. Rental, hotel rental available. You'll have restaurants there, but you'll also have a Pioneer League team in the future. So I'd love you to come in here, Spill, and chat about it. And then we'll go back and talk a little bit about the league and what it's all about and what it's going to be offering the fans.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So this complex has really been like a labor of love. I was never passionate about development. It just kind of spurred itself on. I had a chance encounter about 7 years ago with somebody that wanted to bring potentially basically a competitive sports complex like they have in Cooperstown. And I hated the idea because I said, I don't want to continue to profit off competitive sports. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, this is not the way I want to see baseball or softball grow. I want to be part of something that's community driven. And in my years as a member of the Players Association, the union, I was always a part of every single joint initiative that was offered to union members. So buses for baseball, RBI program, any youth initiative, action team, I was always a part of it. And how could we get that draw? How could we make a connection with the Major League Players Association, Major League Baseball, and create a site that was beyond competitive sports? How do we make it available to everybody? How do we get people to play rec programs again and look at the rec program as a viable resource for families? How do you make baseball where a glove costs you $250 or a bat's $250. How do you make it affordable for anybody? How do you get a single parent to play? So those are the challenges that I saw and a need that I thought we could fill. The project, over 7 years, we failed multiple times. This iteration, the one that's getting built right now, is iteration number 3. The first 2 essentially went bankrupt. And so, you have to have long-term vision. You have to have some, ignorance on how difficult development is, because it's never on a timeline that you and I are ready for. For example, I could ask for a letter of interest or a letter of intent or a letter of support, and you might be gung-ho for my project, and I might not see that letter for 4 months, a simple letter, or a callback. And so it is a very frustrating endeavor. It's also worthwhile because once you start getting through it, as I'm sure Chris is aware, whenever you're dealing with municipalities or you're dealing with finances, there's a lot of speed bumps along the way. So what we feel like we've been able to accomplish is a true partnership with the town of Windsor, the rec program, like we wanted to. I wanted to make sure that we had a Miracle League field because I thought that was a community that often gets neglected. I'm not sure if anybody has a special needs child or knows anybody. I don't, but that's a community that's grossly underserved. If you look at the numbers of divorces, people that have special need, it's almost 90% end in a divorce. So any way we can to help back them, provide some levity, provide a bit of a respite, I thought that was really important. And so that's become a focal point for us. That was also a focal point in selling this thing, not selling it, but getting the partnership with Major League Baseball and the Players Association, because they've attached themselves to that Miracle Field, which I thought was really important. And then as we looked around at all these other sports development, the biggest aspect that you have to look at when you're building these things, the fields are a loss leader. So if you're just building fields thinking that rental program is going to make you money, you're out of your mind. You have to be able to capture all the other revenue streams, and revenue streams can be retail, owning the land, parking, you name it. And so our development has really learned from other failures, which is fine. We've also learned from other successes. Disneyland is Disneyland because they have a captive audience. They have hotels on site. They have food. That's how they're getting you. It's not just the day pass at Disneyland. And it's not, I'm not trying to get you, but we're trying to make sure that this project is viable for a long period of time so we can have people come and play baseball or softball, soccer, lacrosse forever on fields that are nice. So at the end of the day, when we look at this project, I usually tell potential investors, if I was to remove all the fields, all of them, and take them completely off my map, take the bubble off the map, take anything that you see off the map, but just leave the hotels and retail, it pencils out. So I think that was the most important for us. It took many, many years, people far more intelligent than me. We have really good partners, great development team. And when we say like a baseball player requires an entire village to build one, and Danny, you get this, especially, from an organizational standpoint with the Dodgers, how many people does it take to develop a player? Literally every
300.
So imagine a sports development and how many people it possibly takes. So that's a little backstory on this project. And the last little thing, because I'll let it segue into back to the Pioneer League. To me, one of the biggest aspects of connecting community to sports was having a professional sports team there. I don't care if a kid goes on to play professional sports. That's not my intent. I don't even care if a kid goes on to play at his varsity level. To me, what's important is an athlete, regardless if they're basketball, softball, volleyball, because we will have soccer, professional soccer there, both men and women, is to see something that you can do outside of your comfort zone. For example, when I was a kid, I was 10 years old. I met a baseball player, Steve Sachs. He was my idol. I came to Santa Barbara for this caravan trip, just like the Rockies do. And I met him, and he was the same size as my dad. I thought baseball players were all 12 feet tall. And so I saw that Steve Sachs, my favorite player, was as tall as my dad, and it connected me. Human interaction is really, really important. And so the connection for an athlete to see another professional athlete, whether they want to be part of it or not, it could lead to executive. It could lead to wanting to create food. It could your brain could just go wherever it wants to go. I thought that having a professional team within a community and embracing that and connecting the dots was probably going to carry the most amount of weight as far as impact within our community, and then for people leaving it, going out. So that's how we ended up getting this entire vision together. But like I said, it has not been easy. And this minor league contraction made it even harder.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the things for everyone to know is that the Owlz, who have been in the Pioneer League, now will move to the Windsor complex. So when the complex is ready to house a team, the Windsor franchise will have the Owlz. So now let's get back to the Pioneer League, and we're just trying to inform you what you're about to see starting in 2021. And Chris Phillips, Chris Moyer, Ryan, just chime in. Who's involved? What clubs are involved? And how are the players comprising these teams? How are they obtained? What's their affiliation? Because they're not an affiliated minor league team with one of the 30 franchises. If you could walk through that, that'd be fantastic.
I'll start. First of all, Chris Moyer, thank you again for the idea of getting this call together, and I'm honored to be part of it. And so I'll give you the kind of the brief background and kind of what we're looking at, you know, from a business model standpoint moving forward with what these teams are going to look like, where the players are going to come from, and then Spilly, if you want to echo what I'm saying, but. So we, you know, as a league, you know, when it became pretty evident that there was going to be this drastic change around the landscape of minor league baseball, and it was apparent that short season leagues were going to be eliminated. You know, we were all freaking out, obviously, and trying to figure out what we're going to do and what the solution is going to be. And we saw what was happening with the New York Penn League, you know, kind of just gutting that league and turning it into a collegiate wood bat league, which may work, may not work. I'm not sure. You know, and then the Northwest League, which their teams from there have been eliminated. They're trying to turn that league into a full season league, which I'm not sure how it's going to work in some of those markets either. But as a Pioneer League, which is a league that's existed for, you know, over 100 years, you know, and we also knew, you know, Dan, as you and I talked about yesterday, you know, when it came to a priority level with all of the big picture things that Major League Baseball had to figure out with this drastic change, we're probably going to be kind of at the bottom of the priority level. So, you know, our options were either A, you know, it's over, throw up our hands, and, you know, it was a good run, and it's a shame that professional baseball is no longer going to exist. B, you know, sit around and wait for Major League Baseball to tell us what things are going to look like. And as we started to see what they were doing with the Pioneer League, we didn't want that. So we got together as a league and owners and GMs and kind of put together a, you know, sophisticated proposal proactively of what we thought this league could look like, that Major League Baseball would be on the same page with. So the best way I can describe it right now, and there's still some details that need to be worked out, but it's going to be this kind of hybrid indie ball league, right? So it's still a partnership league with Major League Baseball. We're going to have to go out, especially in 2021, because we're just not sure what minor league baseball is going to look like next year. But for this next year, we're going to have to go out and build our own team, and it's a new, somewhat exciting, challenging task to take on. But, you know, we're gonna have to go hire a manager and hitting coach and pitching coach, and you ask where the players are coming from. I mean, you know, with the elimination of all these teams out there is going to be no shortage of high level talent around the country. I mean, all the guys that were playing for Pioneer League teams last year, you know, with Major League Baseball shortening the draft, I mean, all these guys that would have been drafted in the previous model are going to be out there looking for places to play. And we're going to have to go find them. And we're going to have to, I think it's going to be really important to find a manager that's well respected in the game, that can pick up the phone and make calls and figure out how to recruit. And I've got a really good guy in mind right now. And so that part of it's kind of exciting and fun. And but it's going to be a challenge. I mean, it's definitely going to be a hit to the pocketbook from an expense side, having to pay salaries for these players. There will be a little bit of balance with that, where we're not having to pay, league dues, licensing fees, ticket tax revenue that we were in the previous model. So again, trying to budget for this kind of stuff and really look at it from a business standpoint was not the easiest thing to do. But I think we've gotten to a place where we're pretty comfortable with the model that we're working off of. And it's going to be fun and exciting. And the response, like I said, the response from our community was really encouraging. And I think fans are just really happy that we're able to keep professional baseball here.
Yeah. So Toasty is not going away, right?
Toasty is here to stay, my man.
Yeah.
Like
Who doesn't love us more?
That's right.
All right. Let me take this from a couple different angles. Number one, let's look at the history of our sport. Branch Rickey, came up with the terminology of farm team. You look at the history of our sport and how many minor league affiliates there used to be. There is an incredible amount. I think at one point, the Dodgers, I think in the late 70s, had like 25 teams.
Oh my gosh.
And so baseball has contracted, expanded multiple times. And what's going to be interesting to see happen, we're at 120 right now with these independent versions, right? The Appalachian League and obviously the Pioneer League. What happens when baseball expands to 32 teams?
That's right.
What are we going to see happen? Are we going to add an additional 8 minor league teams? I think so. So I think we're in the middle of an ebb and a flow. I don't think this is just a byproduct of the pandemic. I think you look at 2019, and Chris, I'm sure you know these numbers as well. 2019, there was about 65 million fans through the stands at major league games. So 30 teams, 162 games, 65 million fans. With 162 minor league affiliates, does anybody want to make a guess how many million fans came through the turnstiles? Anyone want to make a guess?
I think it was around 70 million, 75 million. Oh.
It was a little bit over 50 million fans. So minor league baseball was neck and neck with Major League Baseball when you can think of the amount of fans going to it. So why would Major League Baseball want to contract? Now, if you follow the finances, it's because Major League Baseball wasn't making much money from the minor league system. I want to say aggregate, it was close to $30 million total for major league teams. That's about $1 million per organization from ticket sales and from these affiliations. So it wasn't making a lot of sense monetarily. The draft was also inefficient to Major League Baseball teams. A lot of the players that get drafted, especially when you had 60 rounds, I think it was less than 2% actually made to the big leagues. You get down to 48 rounds, and it was something like 5% at the best. Now they're going to get it down to 20 with the hope that they're getting closer to 25% of their drafted players make it to the big leagues, which now makes it a better cost, right? So that's why we're in this place. Baseball has looked to shed some cost and get a little bit more efficient. I don't mind that from a business standpoint. I also think it's short-sighted. So when I look at Major League Baseball and the communities that, affiliated baseball takes away from, will it prevent people from going to the games? No. It's not going to prevent people from going to watch the Vibes or an Owls game. People are still going to go because the cost and the travel, it's cheaper, family friendly versus driving 60 miles to go watch a Rockies game. Nobody wants to park in downtown Denver right now for $25. So we know that it's still viable. Now, the next question is, and it's the most important, will the players develop in these leagues? And we don't know. That's where we're at. Is we would love to see the success of like the Sugarland Skeeters that ended up making it to the minor league affiliate. We would love to have the St. Paul Saints success. We would love to have the success of the Long Island Ducks. Those are independent teams that you have seen many major league players play from those organizations.
That's right.
Where Major League Baseball can help this league, and it looks like they're helping, is by offering the scouting information, whether it's the Hawkeye data, whether it's the Rapsodos, or however they're measuring the data and the skill set of these players. Because again, there's been a byproduct of organizations cutting out scouting departments. So how can you get less scouts to gather information from these leagues to see if there's some players that have high spin rate, high contact rate, chase rate?
Right.
This is where we're at. So we might be at the forefront of watching an entire league turn into an amazing developmental league where, yeah, you might find out there's 100 players in the next 10 years made it to the big leagues from the Windsor Owlz or from the Colorado Springs Vibes.
Mm-hmm.
We could be there. And I do believe we'll probably get some form of it. But as a former player that went stop to stop, I'm really disappointed the Rockies aren't in Nashville anymore. I'm really disappointed Tri-City's gone. I'm disappointed in the loss of 42 minor league affiliates because I thought that was important. Yeah. But we don't know what this thing's going to turn out to be. And I'm a little bit apprehensive, but I'm also a little bit excited to see if we can create this thing into turning into something special.
Yeah. Spillborghs, just in response, for everybody on the call, just think about a funnel, because that's what the minor leagues are for. The short season rookie leagues, high and low A leagues, give players opportunities to get to Double A. So instead of having 3 spots for outfielders, you have 12 or 15. You've got 50 or 70 pitching spots. You've got 12 catchers. Players become prospects. Not everybody is Ryan out of the 7th round. A lot of guys are 40th round picks. I drafted Mark Burley in the 38th round. When you get opportunity, you get results. And some players play their way in. So the Pioneer League teams will be Grand Junction, Idaho Falls, Missoula, Great Falls, Windsor, Billings, Montana, Ogden Raptors, and Colorado Springs, with maybe some growth later on. So I think what Spilly said for everyone is, I think there's 2 major components here. You've got to instruct and make players better, and the tech component has to be vibrant, because having no one in the stands as a scout shouldn't matter if a player's performing at a high level and you have video and tech capability. The 30 organizations will find out, and they'll know, and they'll work at it. So one other thing, and then I'm going to open it up to the group, and thanks to everybody so far. Actually, Chris Moyer, didn't you have a really fun thing about proximity for the nearest affiliated club from where we are today?
Yeah. Well, prior to the start of the 2019 season, when the Vibes started their first year in the Rookie League, I decided to do a list of all the affiliates around the area. And, the closest team was Grand Junction, 310 miles away. And now that Grand Junction and ourselves have been taken out of the affiliated ranks, the closest affiliated minor league team from Colorado Springs is the new ballpark in Amarillo, Hodgetown Ballpark, and they're 370 miles away. When they're talking about the geography of the minor leagues, there just isn't any teams nearby. I mean, there's only 4 teams within 500 miles of Colorado Springs. It was Grand Junction, Amarillo, Albuquerque, and the new ballpark in Wichita. That was scheduled to open this year. In comparison, when you think of a team like Charlotte has 22 teams in a 200-mile radius of Charlotte. 52 teams within 500 miles. In comparison to Colorado Springs, only 4 teams. So, I mean, you see the way, how much of a geographical disadvantage Colorado Springs was geographically, trying to traveling to other teams in our market. Missoula, one of the teams in our league, they are 966 miles away. 906 miles away from Colorado Springs. Dan's project in Dyersville, Iowa, happens to be closer than Missoula in our league. The Field of Dreams site is only 913 miles away. So it's kind of shows you how large this league, the Pioneer League, is. I mean, it basically started out as teams in Montana, Idaho, and Alberta, eventually figured in Utah. But in the last 15, 20 years, the growth of the league has included Casper in the early 2000s. And then when Casper moved to Grand Junction in 2012, that was started the growth into Colorado.
That's great information, Chris. Season, Chris Phillips, if I'm right, 76 games in the past. Now it's moving to 92. So you have 56 or 46 home dates. And the schedule, Memorial Day into September. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we gained 8 home games, which is great. Looking at opening up around Memorial Day weekend and going into mid-September. We're working on schedules right now. We got a league call tomorrow to kind of figure out how this is all going to work out. And, Spilly, we're all really hopeful that your complex is going to be open and ready. And there's been discussions about Boise coming into the league that we're working through, which is great. I mean, we definitely want to see this league grow and expand over the next few years. And, the unfortunate part of a lot of teams getting eliminated, opens up the potential for us to bring in some additional teams to the league. But to Chris Moyer's point, it's, the geography is a challenge. I mean, it's our biggest challenge by far from a travel standpoint. And that's one of the things that Major League Baseball, kind of kept harping on. But, it's worked. It's been around for a long time. And I think we can continue to make it work and make it successful.
And if I can add on travel, I mean,
right.
having been an experienced PCL, if you don't know the PCL, it's the Pacific Coast League,
Brutal.
and it is terrible. We're talking about AAA. Regardless, I played in Round Rock. I played for Colorado Springs. So you have to be on the first flight out, no matter what, no matter where. So if you're in Tacoma, you're on the first flight out, and usually that's 5 a.m. So, and your travel day, if you're going to Memphis, that's a 6-hour travel day for you. With
a connection.
With a connection. So, people are saying, well, the AAA is a flying league. Yeah, it's a flying league, but it's no better than the Pioneer League.
It still sucks, man.
It's no better. The best league of travel, International League. It's a bus league. That's the best one. But
absolutely,
all the other ones, the PCL is terrible. All of these things are not, even Major League Baseball. This is where I laugh at it. The Seattle Mariners are at the biggest competitive disadvantage in all of Major League Baseball because they travel 25% more than any other team. If you're in Milwaukee, I think last year Milwaukee traveled something like 9,000 miles, even though it was the COVID. I want to say the Mariners traveled close to 20,000 miles.
Yeah. It's
the same, and that's Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why people make such a big deal of travel. It's just a narrative that tries to downplay, the value of an organization. So
Ryan, the people who say that never got on that 5 o'clock flight where you have to change planes in Salt Lake City. I mean, that's, there's no way. All right. So now let's
and pray to the connection still there.
Wow. And hope your equipment
made. Still have all the seats for the connecting flight.
Yeah. And hope your equipment made the connection.
Dan, may I ask a question?
Well, that's what we were going to do now, Paul. We were going to open it up for the group. So why don't you go first? Before you go, anyone has a question, raise your hand in the participant chat and Alex will open up and then we'll be able to have direct contact with each of the participants. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, this is I'm asking this in the spirit of just finding out more information, just gathering information. In the law, they call it discovery. But if this is a question for all three of you, Chris, and Spilly. Chris Moyer, you were mentioning all these distances from various cities in the same league, but isn't it a function? Isn't Major League Baseball, by doing that, merely following the demographics of population density? Seems to compare Colorado Springs with Charlotte, where there are 22. You said there were 22 other teams within a 200-mile radius. Isn't that merely a function of the population? Yeah. And obviously, we know that out west there are much greater distances and far fewer people, and therefore far fewer markets and smaller markets. I didn't realize anything about what Spilly was talking about the PCL, but is Major League Baseball wrong to follow the population demographics, is my question.
Well, I mean, I think in the case of the, they had already built most of these teams in Carolina long ago, and we were slower to build onto the process, I guess, when they had these other leagues out here in the 40s and 50s. I mean, they already had built these most of these leagues out east back in the 40s and 50s, but it's just, well, I mean, maybe it's the idea of when they designed the Pioneer League, obviously they were thinking more of the Pacific Northwest or in the Alberta, Montana range. But now that all of a sudden we're growing this league to include Colorado, it threw us more in a competitive disadvantage for a while. But well, we'll see how this works out. I mean, in the case of North Carolina, you got 4 or 5 leagues that are competing out there in North Carolina themselves. Carolina League, the South Atlantic League, and of course Charlotte in the International League. They have all the teams set up out east, and that's just part of the disadvantage that we had built out here.
Well, if you were on the other side of this, if you were working for Major League Baseball, and I mean, how might you tackle this same question?
I want to answer this one because this one's
yeah, it's kind of a challenge because how can you?
Yeah. Okay, Spilly.
So here, I'll give you an example. Coors Field, downtown Denver, 25 years ago. Terrible place to be. Denver had some growth, but it was coming down to what was one of the other sites? It was another site in Florida, right? It was the Marlins, it was Arizona, Colorado, and I think Arizona came in a little bit later. But when they looked at Denver, they weren't sure that the population would support a major league team, and the area was slowly developing. Now you look at it 25 years later. Denver is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. It's also top 5 in places to live, top 5 most active. It is a very viable region for viewership when it comes to Broncos and the Nuggets and the Rockies. In fact, when the Rockies first came into existence, they had over 4 million fans first year. So you have to be forward thinking and trying to look at what population growth is going to look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. In Windsor, which is where we are, population is 30,000. If you talk to the Chamber of Commerce in Windsor, they're going to tell you population is going to double in the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's an incredible amount of growth.
Yes, it
is. If you look at the surrounding areas of that spot, you have 500,000 people. So, when you're looking at small towns, can small towns support affiliated baseball? The answer is yes. If you look at the surrounding community. And so that's the problem, is that we've gotten to a place where you want something established. Well, not everything's established right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. And if I'm a Major League Baseball executive looking at areas of growth. I'm looking for average median household. I'm looking for education level. I'm looking for how many elementary schools. I'm looking for how much work is available. And that's how I started finding viable areas. And that's why I think a lot of this has been short-sighted, because I think the Pioneer League 10 years from now is probably going to be one of the most attended leagues in all of baseball, just because the growth in Colorado Springs is huge. The growth in our area is huge. Casper, Wyoming's growing up again. So to me,
even Boise. Yeah.
Boise's blowing up.
Boise.
So, I mean, you're getting a lot of population movement into the center of the United States, which is exactly where we are.
All right, well, let's keep going here. I want to get as many people involved as we can. Alex, I know you're running the board. I have a couple of people here in the chat room, so we'll ask the questions to the group. First of all, Ken Reed asks of you, Spilly, will the Owls play in Windsor in 21, even if the pro stadium isn't completed?
Yes. So we have a, we call it souped up collegiate field. It's artificial turf. We can seat 1,500 fans at minimum, lights. I mean, it's going to be nice. It's still obviously a work in progress. It's not going to be the best, facility in Major League Baseball or in the Pioneer League, but a year later it will be. So, there's got to be a little bit of a give and take. We will have a viable field for baseball by spring of 21.
That's great news. Chris Phillips, you can exhale a couple more times. It was great.
Thank you. That's fantastic news. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Nice job, Spill. Roderick Nelson asked a question. What benefit is there for Pioneer clubs if it is being designated a partner league?
I'll jump in on that. I mean, I think, as I talked about earlier, as we were, as a league, trying to figure out a solution to keep professional baseball viable in our markets, the two most important things were A, it's got to be professional, and B, we've got to figure out a way to maintain a relationship with Major League Baseball. If we know we're not going to have a direct affiliation to a specific team, can we at least figure out a way as a league and as teams to be affiliated with Major League Baseball as an organization? From a marketing standpoint, to be able to wave that MLB brand, that flag, and kind of use that brand to help leverage sponsorship deals and whatever else we've got going on. We're going to get some financial subsidy from Major League Baseball for the first 3 years, is what's been negotiated out right now to get the league kind of up and going again in this new format, which is great. And then, eventually, and this is still being, figured out, but being able to figure out how to get guys on, players on loan from teams. So, Dan, like you and I talked about yesterday, kind of back to the old school days of kind of co-op, partnerships with major league teams where you might be able to, we might be able to work with the Rockies. We might be able to work with the Brewers. And, I'm in constant contact with the Brewers player development guys who we've worked with for the last 5 years here in the Springs. And they're excited about the opportunity to do the same thing. So we've still got some of that to figure out, but that's where that benefit comes in, instead of just being some sort of strictly indie ball league,
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I wanted to add there, I mean, the idea, instead of just one being affiliated with just one team, we could be technically affiliated with any of the 30 teams, which makes it a good thing. So we could actually have ties with somebody out east that we weren't even aware of. So, I mean, all of a sudden we could have a team with the Mets or the Phillies or Nationals or something like that, down the road.
Alex, could you open up Chris Cohen's mic? And Chris, go ahead with your question.
So my question is for Chris Phillips. I had heard that when the Vibes were looking at being cut at the beginning of this whole contraction issue, the Pesos League was looking at putting in an expansion team in Colorado Springs. And I don't know if that team is still planned on, but if they come into existence, do you think the Vibes will be able to work together with that expansion team, or do you think you'll be competing for fans and for money?
So we met with the Pecos League commissioner, Andy Dunn, probably a few weeks ago. Really good guy. And, we kind of talked through what we were going through. And this was before any of the announcement of the new Pioneer League had happened. but let him know that, you know, we were definitely planning on staying around for a long time. And I think at that point, they kind of, they knew that if we were going to be in the market, that it was probably not viable for them to be there as well. So my understanding from that last conversation is that, and this is, you know, a quote from Andy, it was like, hey, if you guys are going to be here, it doesn't make sense for us to be here. So that was a little bit of a relief. I mean, we certainly didn't want to be competing with them. It's a good growing market, but, you know, it's only big enough for one professional baseball team. So we were happy to hear that. And they seemed like they were, you know, really on board with that sentiment.
Great question, Chris. Alex, if you could open up Kurt Wells's mic. Kurt has a question.
Yeah, I'm asking this question not because I'm considering a comeback, but I'm curious about the financial part of it. As far as the money that you pay the players, first of all, two-part question, how does that compare to, say, rookie league ball? And secondly, does a team that has a real strong financial backer behind it really have a big advantage in the league than somebody that's really strapped for cash?
So we're still figuring some of that out. I mean, there's going to be a salary cap of some type for this league, and we're going to have to keep things at a fair advantage. I feel like we're in a good spot because we've got a great market and people are going to want to come and play in the Springs. But I think that, you know, having to take on hiring a manager and a hitting coach and a pitching coach and you know, and fielding a team and paying salaries for players, it's a new thing that we've never had to deal with. I have no idea, and Spilly, you can, you know, tag in here, but I have no idea what our you know, Vibes players made in 2019. I really have literally no idea. So we've kind of got some figures put together for what salaries could look like, and I feel like it's going to be fair and competitive across the league, and that's where we're at right now. But I mean, all of this is being worked out in daily calls with league owners and GMs, and you know, I hope by the end of January is my hope that we kind of have all the rules in place. We're going to hire a new league president. We're going to, I mean, it's a new beginning, and so there's a lot of work to be done. But we've been working on this for the last 7 months, kind of behind the scenes. So it's not starting from scratch. We've just got to, you know, iron out the details at this point.
My first year in Tri-Cities, Washington, I made $850 a month. So that was $3,400 for my first short season.
Before taxes.
Yeah, that was before taxes. So
and housing.
And housing.
And clubhouse dues.
And clubhouse dues. So, I mean, if you think that these guys are going to be making $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month, it's not how it works. It's never been how it works. If they're getting $1,200 a month, that would be amazing. Like, honestly, that'd be great.
I think that's about where it's going to be, bud.
Yep. So yeah, that's already a step above where minor league baseball was a year ago for the same players at that level. There's an aspect about this thing where as somebody that's gone through the ranks and maybe, yeah, I had a little bit of extra money because I was a 7th round draft pick. Having bumps in the road artificially placed, which is salary, it serves two functions. Number one, are you really passionate about what you're doing? Because if you're not, you know, the money will dissuade you from continuing on. Number two, as a byproduct of not having much money, you're also putting the athletes in harm's way because number one, how am I supposed to, you know, feed this machine that's supposed to be, you know, very efficient? It costs money to eat well. It costs money to train in the off season. So you have a little bit of a checks and balance because if they make too much money, some guys won't take advantage of that. If you make not enough, they won't be able to get themselves in proper shape. So I've always looked at that as a bit of a conundrum. The players that love it, that are passionate about it, they're going to wake up at 5 a.m. They're going to sleep in an apartment with 5 other guys. They're going to sleep on an air mattress. They're going to do whatever it takes because those are the same type of things that movie actors have gone through, right? Like working at a restaurant, all these little just hardships, an internship. I always looked at this as a paid internship until you got to AA.
Right.
And that's essentially what, that's what minor league baseball is at the lower levels. It's a paid, really poor internship to get yourself to the next level.
Get to AA and then see what you can do from there. Roster protection, all those kind of things. So I'm going to, Kurt, did you have a follow-up to that?
If I could just ask Spilly on another question, I think I know the answer, but beyond the complex, you aren't going to be involved with the Windsor Owlz, are you?
Yeah, like as a coach?
Well, not a coach necessarily, but as part of the, ownership group or whatever you may call it.
Yeah, our ownership, Future Legends, owns the Owls.
You do? Okay. All right.
It's all part of it. Yep.
So if they make a bad play, you can boo Ryan. Ryan's I had to say it, Spilly. I had to do it. I'm going to open it up now to Patrick Lyons. Patrick, hang on one second.
I got it, Dan. I got it.
Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, everybody, for being on this call. This is fun. I imagine there was probably some worry at the onset about branding and maybe having to, come up with new team nicknames and things of that nature. But I know since then it's kind of, been squashed. Does anyone in the group know if Grand Junction? I imagine that they're going to be able to keep the Rockies name. I guess my question is ultimately, do you know the specifics in why the Appalachian League wasn't able to keep all of their nicknames? Because we're going to have the Grand Junction Rockies, but all of the, the Bluefield Blue Jays and the Elizabethton Twins, they're going to need to rebrand. And then real quick, Spilly, is Windsor Owlz most likely going to be the nickname of choice?
We're the Northern Colorado, so almost like the Norco Owls is the name of choice. Now, I can't speak on Grand Junction, but what I do believe is that there was some ownership from the Rockies side in Grand Junction, which allows them to have the Rockies name in Grand Junction. I don't believe that's the same case with the Twins or the Blue Jays. I don't believe those affiliates owned or any ownership within those organizations had ownership of that Appalachian League. So that's why they lost that name.
Yeah, I think Dick Monfort owns the Grand Junction Rockies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How about your second question? Anybody have a follow-up point for what Patrick asked?
Well, I think all of the AppB teams were owned by major league affiliates. Is that not correct?
Just about all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Major League Baseball just looked at it and said, "Hey, it's our league. We're gonna just rebrand all these teams, and that's the way it's gonna go." So they tend to have their way of just doing what they want to do.
And a lot of that is for tax reasons. I was a part of that a couple times where we bought franchises. It just made a lot of sense. We have a question from Greg Petty for the group. Is your financial model at all dependent on you hopefully selling contracts of promising players to major league organizations?
It's not dependent on it at all. It's something that we would love to see come to fruition in the future. And I think that's something that we'll be working on a league. And that's part of the partnership part of being connected with Major League Baseball and being able to figure out a way to work with, one, if not multiple teams around the league to be able to do just that. And, if we find some diamond in the rough and are able, and he's got a standout year and we're able to sell that contract to a major league team and make real money on it. I did not include any of that in the way we budgeted things out, but that would be definitely some good gravy.
Let me add this too. We are always so short-sighted to think that it's just automatically affiliated with Major League Baseball. Having played in Japan, having played in Mexico, having played in different Latin American countries, there's a real, I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of roster spots filled by Japanese players, by Latin American players, by Mexican League players, either on loan or that affiliation's paying for that player to come and get developed in the United States. So you might see more diversity of players than we've ever seen before.
Spilly, that's a great point. With all my experience in Asia and yours also, you know, you'd be able, Chris, to get KBO, NPB teams to funnel players, and they'll pay the salaries of those players to get them competition because they only have one minor league over there. And
Right.
as the veteran of the SABR Lyons on this call is probably realizing, you know, when you're only getting 4 at-bats from one third baseman every day in your minor league system, you're looking for other people to take on at-bats, plate appearances, and innings. And Spilly, I think it's a fabulous point. I think it's a great avenue to add options.
That's a great point. Dan, I'm going to need some of those connections, buddy.
I'll help you a ton, bud. I love you. As long as I get a toasty shirt out of it, I'm good.
You know what? Dan, did you have a connection to Cebu? Because I played in Cebu.
Oh, absolutely. Come on. Those are the diamond seats in Cebu. Those are my boys in there. Come on.
That's
now.
Great. That's awesome.
So scouted over there for 20 years, Spill. We got a lot of connections, starting with some guy, Daisuke Matsuzaka. Yep. And, you know, it's real good. Anyone else have a question for this absolutely terrific panel? I'm looking up and down. Alex, I do not see another hand raised. And here's one
Dan,
more.
There might be some stuff in the chat box. Unfortunately, I don't have access to it.
Just saw it. It's from Roderick again. How do clubs, specifically the Vibes, utilize local families as sponsors for the players on your roster?
Great question. And it was our first kind of new challenge in 19 as we transitioned from AAA to Pioneer League, and figured out that we're going to have to figure out a host family program and put that together. And I was a little worried about how that was going to play out, but it was fantastic. I mean, we put a staff member in charge of it, and every single one of our guys was suited up with a host family. They all became friends, and they still stay in contact. It's like it's that lifetime memory kind of thing where it's like, Billy, you probably went through this at some point too, but we had this awkward Sadie Hawkins dance thing in the beginning of the year when all the guys came in, and we had all the families out there, and we were trying to match them up and pair them up, but it all worked out. And at the end of the year, we had a kind of a party with everybody, and it was one of the most memorable memory-making things I've ever been a part of. I mean, all these guys were crying, and families were crying and hugging each other, and so I'm sure all of them have been, staying in contact. It's going to be a little bit interesting. I plan on sending out actually a survey to all of our host families this week on their interest in coming back. I think every single one of them would have come back 100%, but dealing with some of the COVID things, it's going to be a little bit of a question on who's comfortable and what does that look like, but it's definitely something we're planning on continuing. And I know all the Pioneer League teams, had the same type of program in place in their markets. So it helps fans get engaged and get to know these guys, and really, they talk about it with their friends and their family. So it's just a really good community type of initiative to get the players involved in the community and to get our fans to get to know them better.
Spilly, talk about your host family in summer ball after your freshman or sophomore year. You had a great collegiate summer story. I remember you were telling me once.
So I had Paul and Debbie Brown. I was living in Madison, Wisconsin, Sun Prairie. I had a basement. I never knew what Miller High Life was until I spent a summer in Wisconsin. It's my drink of choice when I'm up there. They were awesome. And what was kind of funny about that, my family came out towards the end of that summer ball experience, and they wanted to take me to a Brewers game. And so I asked our coach, the head coach, he was a Yavapai Junior College, which is a very, very good junior college. A lot of major leaguers have actually come from Yavapai. But he was just hard-nosed and he didn't want me to go. And it was a Tuesday game. I told him for weeks, my family wants to take me to this Milwaukee Brewers game. You're not allowed to go. I was like, it's summer ball. Morning of, I leave him a message. My dad, my mom, host family, that they're taking me. I'm going to this game. When I came back to the field on Wednesday, all my stuff was packed. I was kicked off the team.
Jesus.
And I had to have Paul and Debbie Brown's, like speak for me. I stayed outside of the stadium for 3 days, just trying to earn my trust back with the coach. He was furious. He was like, "You let your teammates down. I told you no." And my teammates after day 3, they voted me back on a team. I was also the league MVP. So, but it was a great experience. I still keep in touch with Paul and Deb. Those host families are really important. They're really, really important to players. It's, there's responsibility, there's accountability, there's respect for somebody else. Those are all necessary for anybody, but for a young athlete that thinks they have the world at their fingertips, having that, established boundaries, I think are really important for a 20, 21-year-old.
And the rest is Madison Mallard's Northwoods League history, right?
Totally.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Shannon asked a question of the group, and Shannon, this is wonderful. And by the way, Shannon, thank you for having I would say the foresight to ask us to have closed captioned on these calls. It's just wonderful. Shannon asks, and I think this is really for Chris and Spilly, how can a person get involved or donate money or time to help the new Windsor complex? Is there a website where you can get updates on the complex? And someone else asked, how can I help the Colorado Springs franchise, in a direct message to me? So you both have people out there that are looking to help. Your response on that?
All right, I'll go first, and then I'll let Chris take over.
Look at Spilly. Spilly's
so
already in the chat room.
I typed
like,
it in.
Here's my email. Email me right away.
No, there's multiple avenues. We love volunteers. As far as money, there's a 501c3 we have established. All the proceeds go towards programming for the Miracle League and getting equipment for athletes. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me. And then there's also the private equity side. That's a different conversation. But if you're looking as an investment, contact me. All my information's on futurelegendscomplex.com. But what we do know, and Chris, you get it. I mean, volunteer at the site. And then when you're getting competitive, weekend tournaments where kids are there, having people spend time on that site and showing people like that's where the bathroom is. And that's how you get to here. It's really important. So those opportunities will pop up more in 22 versus 21, because 21 is going to be pretty skin and bones. But we called next year 0. 2022 is year 1 for us. But I appreciate you reaching out on that, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. And Spilly, kudos again on the Miracle League piece of that project. I think that's amazing. And again, just serving an underserved population, I think it's fantastic. As far as we're concerned here in the Springs, volunteerism, like Spilly said, is huge. From a financial side of things, we're a privately owned, team. We're part of the Elmore Sports Group, which we've got, 7 teams in our ownership group. All of us have fallen on really challenging times this year. So we're trying, we've been able to get creative and innovative, and, minor league baseball operators are some of the most creative people I've ever come across. And, we did everything this last year, from high school graduations to drive-in movies to comedy acts. And, it kind of opened our eyes a little bit to knowing that there's some different things out there that we can do. So a big part of our marketing push is letting the community know that we are an entertainment venue that's available to host different types of events like this, in addition to the baseball. And so, yeah, I mean, that would probably be the best way to be able to help, but you can certainly find my email on our website, and feel free to reach out directly if you have any follow-up questions. But thank you, Shannon.
Awesome. Alex, can you open up Fran Frazier's mic? And Fran has a question.
Oh. Fran's mic is open.
I opened my own. But I was asking Spilly, well, I lived in Wisconsin, just out a little city outside of Green Bay. And, are you looking forward to the older players? We had the little leagues, they would play a game, and then the lights, they didn't have to turn lights on. It was still bright enough at night. They could play 2 games. everybody came out to watch. But then as people got to be, the men especially, got to be, 30, 40 years old, they started softball. And then, of course, if you got to be 60, you still wanted to play. So it was slow pitch. Are you looking at the older population?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Fran, we'll be able to cater to every age group. I mean, we're the competitive, week-long tournament. It's mostly designed for 8 to 12-year-olds. But because we have our relationship with the rec program in Windsor and surrounding areas, there's adult leagues already in play. There's people playing right now. So we have that. And then part of what we are really proud of is when the stadium opens in 2022, that stadium is going to be like every kid that plays there is going to get a chance to play a game in the stadium. During the week, we want UNC to play there. We want club teams to go play in the stadium. We want, the high school game of the night on a Friday to be at our stadium. We want that connection. We would love to see Greeley take on Loveland. We would love to see, Windsor versus Fort Collins, like all that stuff. We want it. We want to be able to house players and just come out there. So yeah, we have every age group, every demographic, men's, women's, non-binary. However, we don't see athletes as one person or another. We just see them as like, can you play second base? Then go play second base.
Well, the older group also is the one with money.
Good point.
So Chris Moyer is going to ask in a moment a trivia question that will have an unbelievable prize. And it won't be who of these panelists have hit 2 home runs off of Clayton Kershaw. Gotcha, Spill. But Chris, you had a fabulous trivia question, and the winner of, or whoever gets the question correct, will get, I'll promise you, a Field of Dreams item. So go ahead, Chris Moyer, ask the big question.
Okay, Ryan, during your 5 years with the Vibes, you actually batted .341 with 19 homers, 95 RBIs. And there were, during that 31 years of AAA baseball, we had 1,095 players that played for the Sky Sox. Ryan Spillborghs is the only player in that 31-year history to do this in one game for the Sky Sox.
Jeez.
What is it?
We'll play the Jeopardy
3 times in 1 inning.
I think I might know what it is, but does it count if it was a rehab assignment?
Oh, yeah.
Includes if you were in a rehab assignment.
So let's just give everybody a chance, Spill, because if you don't get it right, I'm really concerned. But let's give everybody a chance in the chat room or a hand up. If anybody has a question, I'm going to count on Alex to be the master of the board. So I think Patrick Lyons has his hand up. Patrick, what do you got?
All right. Well, I did have a question. I don't necessarily know the answer.
Oh, no. This is trivia. Come on now.
I want to venture a guess, Dan.
Paul Barker.
Did Ryan Spillborghs strike out 3 times in 1 inning?
No.
Patrick Lyons.
Looks like Roger Haydix might have the answer. Roger,
Roger, one of the great historians in our state. Roger, what do you have for us?
Hold on, you're muted, Roger. I asked you to unmute.
Billy right now is hoping it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Roger, you're still muted.
Roger has the coolest outfit on today. When everybody,
you have to unmute yourself, Roger.
Roger, can you answer in the chat room instead? If you're having trouble with your mic.
Oh, he's gone. We lost.
Wow.
And Spilly, it's not you getting struck out 4 times by the Herb Shankman nasty curveball. It's better than that. It's a good thing. Greg Petty, multiple triples in a game. No, that's not it. Come on, folks. This is really good. You will never see it again in your lifetime.
What?
Is it hit for the cycle?
I love your buzzer, Dan.
No,
yeah, it doubles as my throat. Let's see. Greg Petty says 3 hits in an inning. Now, Spilly would have remembered that one. There's no doubt about that one. Patrick Lyons. Let's open Patrick's mic up again, Alex. Patrick Lyons, let's go. The educator. Give us a good one here.
I thought this right before you gave that hint, and then you gave the hint, and I felt really good. Did he pitch in the same game he hit 2 home runs?
Chris Moyer, you are the judge.
Partially correct, but he did not pitch. He didn't pitch, though.
He was the winning pitcher.
No, it's better. Come on, folks. My best Field of Dreams merch. Anybody want to venture another guess?
Yeah, he struck out 5 batters in 1 inning.
He didn't pitch. I'm not pitching in this one.
You couldn't waste that golden right arm from 60 feet, 6 inches.
Yeah.
Come on now.
So, look, you know I hit 2 homers in a game, so try to piece it together.
There you go, Spilly. You're on a roll. You can only hope to contain him right now. Let's think. Look at everybody. You know what they're doing? Everybody's Googling right now. This is beautiful. Kurt Wells, what do you have?
2 homers in an inning.
Nope.
Chris Moyer, I think we would give him partial okay on that one, but it's not good enough to get the grand.
Not quite.
Right.
2 grand slams. 2 grand slams in the game.
No, he wouldn't waste 8 RBI in the minor leagues, right, Phil?
If I remember correctly, there was a grand slam in there.
Harry Keller, I know you're thinking this one through. What do you have?
Well, I thought it was hit for the cycle, so I got knocked out a while back.
Harry, come in sliding. Don't come in standing up. Come on now, folks.
How about one inside the park and 1 regular?
Chris Moyer.
Nope.
That's a buzzer, actually. You know, Chris Phillips, you've got the historian at your fingertips, and you don't even cheat.
Text me the answer, Moyer. Hurry up.
That's right. Come on now, folks. We have Patrick's idea is just keep asking, and one of these might be right in the chat room. You're close. So I'm going to say going once, going twice. So what I'll end up doing is I'll donate a shirt for a future trivia contest. Ryan, what is the answer?
All right, I'm guessing I led off the game with the home run and I walked off the home run.
That's right.
Ladies and germs, this is elite SABR trivia right here. And Ryan, I might actually send you a shirt just because that's pretty good. I mean, that's a good question.
Well, so that was back in 2011. That was in 2011, my last year in the big leagues. And that was a year I was dealing with plantar fasciitis, which was terrible. You know, like of all the mistakes I made in my baseball career, not going on the DL or the IL now with plantar fasciitis was my biggest mistake. I played hurt. So if you wonder why I ended up with a 272 batting average, it's because 2011, I tried to play with plantar fasciitis. So I go down to the minor leagues. I'm on the IL for 3 weeks. I tell them, I'm like, look, my foot's fine. Like I can hit again because I couldn't sit on my backside. And that game, led off with the homer and then walked it off. And I was like, I'm telling you, I'm literally hitting 500 down here. I'm fine. I've been playing hurt. And then I go back to the big leagues. I think I play in the big leagues the next day or the day later. And then as I'm running to first on my birthday, my plantar fascia rips in half. And that was the end of my 2011 season. And that was the last time we saw Spilly in the big leagues. So, yeah, but that's the life of a baseball player, right? Like it doesn't always end on a good note. But that game, I do remember that game. That was crazy because I got called up the next day.
But you didn't own up. You didn't own up that you missed. I'm sorry. You didn't own up that you missed the bunt sign on the walk-off.
No bunts. No bunts and the bases loaded.
But it was
rehab.
It was actually a three-run walk-off home run in the. It was actually a three-run walk-off home run in the bottom of the 10th.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. It went 9-7.
It was crushed. Am I right, Spill?
Yeah, I hit that one pretty good.
Yeah, I remember. I actually saw footage of that home run. Everybody, I want to thank Chris Phillips. I want to thank Ryan Spillborghs, and I want to thank Chris Moyer. This was an absolutely fun panel. I think we're all walking away with a better feel for the Pioneer League. And speaking on the chapter's behalf as a board member, we will do everything we can to help both of your causes moving forward, to help you publicize the league, help you with attendance. And we'll also have a couple of nights when COVID is over where we'll come out and we'll support both teams. And we'll have to bring Miller High Life for Spilly, just so we know now that's one of his favorite brewskis. But we really want to thank you guys for taking the time. Our game plan now was to have some open forum, but frankly, just thank you to the three of you for participating in the middle of your busy day. We really appreciate it. And what I'd love to do now is I'd love to open it up for discussion, just some open baseball conversation. If anybody has any questions, comments, just raise your hand. Alex will call on you or open your mic and we'll go ahead.
We have a question from Greg Petty.
Yeah, I guess we've got several people here who might have insight into this, but while Spilly's still around, I would like to tap his insight into this. There was a significant article in the Athletic, Spilly, about the Rockies losing 4 analysts, being down to 2, and likely having fewer analysts than any team in the big league, which I think, if I were primarily a Rockies fan, I would be pretty unhappy about. Any thoughts about that? Because I know you are familiar with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think at the major league level, we've seen analytics teams have significant impact, whether it's the Astros, the Dodgers, a lot of these organizations that have been forward thinking and they continue to be forward thinking. Analytics departments, I think the Red Sox might lead baseball and they have 30. So 30 people in the analytics team. And now you have the Rockies down to 2. That seems like a disadvantage to me. I mean, I don't like it. One of the guys that ended up moving on, his name is Trevor Patch. I think we've had him on here for several times. Very, very, very smart. But I also believe we're in a spot right now I could look up so much stuff on Baseball Savant. I could look up things on Fangraphs. If you're a general manager or an AGM or somebody else and you've grown accustomed, or you have this system put in place, maybe as a stopgap for a year or 2, you can survive with 2. You just have to believe in those numbers, whether to me, it's a hard hit percentage. It's a swing and miss, a whiff rate. If you're a pitcher, I would feel confident with those 2 numbers right there that you can do just fine. It's your scouting department that concerns me. It's your coaching departments that concern me. All these other franchises, for example, Cincinnati Reds, they hired Kyle Bodie. Kyle Bodie's the founder of Driveline. if you start getting into that realm where it's education with analytics, that's where I think the next level is. So, and I don't think the Rockies are at that spot where they have, you know, the teacher or founder or somebody that's looking at, you know, beyond the numbers. They're looking at biomechanics and they're looking at how to strengthen aspects, because that's what happened with Jake McGee and the Dodgers.
Right.
The Dodgers saw an inefficiency with his hip. They strengthened his hip for 2 months. They told me you're going to go back to throwing your fastball. And he went back to, if you look at the numbers, he was throwing fastball 96% of the time.
Right.
So something like that, something that simple, taking a player that you earmark and then bringing them into your organization and you can educate them or, you know, rehab them to perform. I think that's where I'm okay if you don't have the analytics team, but you better have that. You better have that side.
Hey, Craig, to that question, my 1988 White Sox team that I was the assistant GM, we had 4 analytics staff people. I mean, that's almost 40 years ago. But the big mistake that they've got right now and the big hurdle they have right now is that their division has 2 and 3 times as many people, and you play more than half your games against your own division. You've got to get out of your division with a positive 1 loss. The Dodgers have 35 staff members. The Diamondbacks have 25. The Giants have 25. San Diego has 25, and the Rockies have 2. And that doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work. You know, I know my first year with the Dodgers, we had 17 people on our analytics staff. So it's just, you know, what Spilly's saying is you're putting so much pressure on your scouting and player development to be more efficient than most can capably be.
I have a question for Spilly about that. What is it that you think is going on or not going on inside, inside the Rockies front office? Since they're down to 2, I mean, some of it is, you know, budgetarily driven because of COVID, but what do you think the underlying thought process is there?
I don't know the inner machinations of what's going on in there, but I would assume that they have not been efficient with their analytics team to begin with. And if you are going to remove parts of a front office, you remove the inefficient parts. That's how it is with all of our stuff, right? Like during COVID, if you were eating out a bunch and you're not going out anymore, you start cutting that and you did something else instead. You start making home meals at home. And then the meals that turn out well, you continue to make those. The ones that turn out poor, you got rid of them. Same thing with the analytics team. I don't think they were as successful as other groups. And so, you know, that's where I think I think you boil it down to 3 or 4 known metrics within the league that you have earmarked within your own system, and you just highlight that one for the next year or 2 and you jump back into it and you get better.
But it seems like with the numbers that Dan pointed out as to the other teams' analytics departments in the division, there's definitely a difference in philosophy here. You know, those are stark numbers.
Yeah, but look, the Philadelphia Phillies just got rid of 80 employees right before Thanksgiving. So you don't think any analytics teams were cut there? I mean, it's league wide. So there's a trend here. I mean, like if I took you to Spot Track, which measures all major league average salaries, do you know how far down it's gone in the last 2 years? League average salary for the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2019, league average team salary was $140 million. For 2021, right now, pre-arbitration, pre-free agency, it's at $98 million. League average. League average. That's $40 million down in 2 years. So just pay attention to the trends. I mean, there's analytics team. There's a lot of things going on. So.
Okay.
Hey, Rye, while we're on the Rockies, can you talk about the David Dahl non-tender and your thoughts about that? I'm sorry.
So this one, this one's not this one's not a baseball. This is not like a baseball decision to me. This is a personal decision. I think the Rockies saw Dahl get hurt too many times. Knowing the player, you know, for some people, you'll always have athletes in a clubhouse that, you know, you have like a rah-rah guy, or you have like he's always in the workout room. And then you have certain players that are on different ends of the spectrum. Not saying it's right or wrong. It's just that people perceive certain athletes in different ways. And I think the Rockies perceived Dahl a certain way, from how he carried himself to the injury history, that it was time for him to go. I didn't like it. I thought, you know, if you have this type of caliber athlete, and clearly he already signed a 1-year, $3 million deal, which was better than the arbitration value, that you should have been able to get some trade value in return. The problem is he was hurt, and he basically hit 160 and had a contact rate below 50%. So you tell me what you could have traded him for.
Billy, that's the first time in my career I've ever seen an arbitration eligible non-tendered player get more than his ARB number.
Yep.
I mean, he wouldn't have asked for $3 million in arbitration. He would ask for 2.627, and he got $3 million from the Rangers. So it's an indicator that he had value in the market.
He has value, and that's again, it's what's making me really upset about baseball in general and the market, is that you have major league players that people non-tendered. Like, how did Eddie Rosario get non-tendered and not traded? Yeah. How did Kyle Schwarber get non-tendered and not traded? Mm-hmm. Like, how did Hunter Renfroe get non-tendered, not traded? Like, this is like BS when I look at it from a player standpoint. This is where my concern is, where you get to the CBA, it's going to get contentious, because the ownership just flooded the market with good players that had real value that they couldn't trade, that couldn't go through the arbitration process, and it just watered down the free agent market. So like that's where, you know, Jock Peterson's market just took a hit because Dahl signed for $3 million. Jackie Bradley Jr.'s market just took a hit because Dahl signed for $3 million. So all these things are connected to each other, and that's why I get upset about it.
That's just too crazy. So I pulled it back, had to tone it down a lot. Yeah, I did.
Patrick, you might want to mute your mic. Anybody else have a question or a comment in the chat? Go ahead, Alex.
I don't have anybody raising their hand. Well, Greg Petty raised their hand, so.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask more questions. This is just a seems to me sort of thing, and it's certainly open to anybody, but the Rockies are in a division that has, I think, morphed with what looks to me like a coming powerhouse at San Diego, and with a long-term powerhouse in Los Angeles. If I'm Rockies management, I would say I can't keep doing things the way I've been doing and be competitive. I think something, whether it's personnel or the way they do things, has to change if they want to be competitive in this division. It's going to be hell on wheels, a little bit like the AL East maybe has been. So I guess that's a comment, and I would, if you guys want to disagree with that, that's fine. But I think for San Francisco and Arizona and the Rockies, they may need to take a different course rather than saying every year I'm going to try to be sort of competitive.
I'll answer your comment for a second, because I disagree with it in a sense that the Rockies went back-to-back playoff spots. That was better than the Diamondbacks, better than the Padres. Padres haven't, up until this year, the Padres weren't in the playoffs since 2010. So a little bit of recency bias, because we've seen the Padres start to get better. The Diamondbacks were supposed to be good. They had the worst record in the National League West, right? So I think when you're dealing with a team like the Dodgers that have deep pockets, They have forward thinkers. They have a great scouting department. They've drafted really, really well. It's also a viable place for a free agent to want to go there. They have a lot of markers that tell you, look, it's 8 straight divisions. I think they're going to get to 14 or 15. That's what I believe. I don't see them slowing down. There's a lot of financial flexibility. Their farm system's loaded. From the Rockies standpoint, have they done things well? Yes. Have they done things poorly? Absolutely. The relief pitchers they've signed over the last couple of years, not viable. That doesn't work. But does that mean you're scared of the relief market? No, it better not be. You just got to earmark what does well here. You know, Jake McGee did well here first 2 years, didn't do well last 3. Brian Shaw did well for maybe a game, not good for the rest of it. Wade Davis set a Rockies franchise record, but he wasn't good for 3 years. So maybe it's a shorter term value contract. Maybe it's a 1-year deal, a little bit more money. Maybe it's not extending yourself to a 31-year-old reliever. That's just how it works. Maybe it's a 1-year deal for a better starting pitching versus going to a $5 million a year starter from the veteran heap of a guy that's a contact guy. Doesn't work. So, you know, in the case of Nolan or the case of Trevor Story, I think that's the next question is, what do you do with them? Business decision, you trade Nolan. That's what you do. And you're not going to get value for him unless you eat money. Otherwise, you just let him sit and let him play the season out and hope he's going to opt out, which, he's not going to opt out because he's going to leave $50 million on the table. So
at least.
So you got to trade him. That's what it boils down to. And then you have to draft better and you have to develop better, and you can't hold on to players forever. That's the other thing. The one thing that I knew as a position player is that there's going to be more position players down the road. So if somebody valued David Dahl 2 years ago, you should have bumped him out if I got me a pitcher. If somebody valued certain players are untradeable. We get it. Nolan, Trevor, untradeable. But Charlie Blackmon, gone. You know, Raimel Tapia, gone. Sam Hilliard, gone. Brandon Rogers, gone. Take them. Certain ones you can tell you don't get rid of them. But others, I'll make another one. You're going to make another outfielder that's going to hit for power one of these years. So trade him. You're always going to get one.
Chris Moyer, you have a question?
Yeah, actually, this is for Dan. Since we didn't really talk about it in the last meeting, but obviously you had a big influence on Kim Ng getting the, in career and getting the now with as her, I guess, on her way to now her job with the Miami Marlins.
I'm really proud of her, Chris. I hired her twice. I hired her as an intern with the White Sox when she started her career right out of the University of Chicago. And she worked 7 years for me. And then I hired her a second time as the vice president, assistant general manager of the Dodgers. She encountered a lot of gender bias early in her career and while with the Dodgers that I was frankly very offended by, and I got rid of people who weren't okay with it. But frankly, I interviewed 106 people for the internship, and she stood out. She continues to be one of my closest friends in the world and an exceptionally talented person. One of the most, I would say, versatile baseball minds in the game. She oversaw player development and scouting for an extended period and just has exceptional interpersonal skills. I told the owner of the White Sox in 1992 that she would be the first general manager that happened to be a female in baseball history. I just think it's awful that the gender bias was there for an extended period, but I'm thrilled she got the opportunity. She's so deserving. She's been the most qualified candidate for probably 15 years. And I'm thrilled for her. I'm thrilled for the game, society in general. When she texted me and told me early in the morning, the day it occurred. I have to say, it was one of the proudest days of my life. I was thrilled for. I think Olivia has her hand up.
Yes, I do. I just want to piggyback on that. As a female in baseball, of course, I haven't worked in baseball for money, but I certainly have wanted to stay engaged with it. And I remembered that about how you were responsible for the beginning of her career. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you. You have always been inclusive, always been supportive, really instrumental in my relationship with the diversity office at the commissioner's office with Tyron Brooks. And I could go on, but it'll seem like I'm making it about me, but that's all about you. You're the person that brought me into SABR, made me feel comfortable. You've always been very, very quick to say, where I have some intellectual capital in baseball, because I always feel a little lost when you talk about arbitration and all these things, and operations that I've never been involved with. And it's just simply a pleasure. And I can't thank you enough. So on behalf of all of females in baseball, thank you. Big hugs, big props. Thank you so much.
That's very kind, Olivia, but there's no place in this world for inequity, and there's no place in this world for bias. I mean, none. And I was brought up by an incredible mother and on my two daughters, and I always felt it was my place as a superior, as a boss for a long period, that I had to erase all the stigmas, and I had to be the one forcing opportunities where they didn't come naturally. I'm just thrilled for her. The great thing about it, Olivia, she got her job because she was the best candidate this time. And it wasn't because she was a female candidate. She was easily the best candidate for the job. And that, for me, as her mentor, that meant so much to me. So I'm thrilled. But thank you for the kind words.
I had the privilege of meeting her in Phoenix. Yeah,
she's
fantastic.
Awesome. She's absolutely awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
The most vibrant mind I've ever worked with. Gosh, she's so talented, folks. Unbelievable. Well, who else? Any other questions in the chat room? Any hands raised, Alex?
Mr. Paul Parker has a hand raised.
Yeah, if I may, since we're edging towards politics here, I thought I would open a powder keg here, and I'm not making any particular political statement. I'm just throwing this out to the group. But the Cleveland Indians got their name, Indians, to the history of it is to honor the first Native American Major League Baseball player, Louis Sockalexis. Most SABR folks know that. And I saw in the paper this morning that the Indians will be probably changing their name. And it's, to me, it's a little sad that the reason they're named Indians is lost. It was an honorary thing to honor the first Native American Major League Baseball player. Just want to throw that out to the group, see if anybody's got thoughts on that.
I'm hoping if they rename it, because I believe the original name of the Cleveland Indians was the Cleveland Spiders. Is that right?
Yep.
So they were the Cleveland Spiders, and then to your point, first and he was crushing it in the minor leagues. But just like I think we've seen it in other sports, and it's not the first time. Washington Bullets got renamed 15 years ago. There's times where I think we can reconcile with the past and certainly uplift why that name is there. I think there's different ways to do it. I'd love to see the Cleveland Indians be named after Larry Doby. When you consider his place as an African-American, civil rights, and not just that, but as a war hero. You have the Cleveland Browns. He's named after Paul Brown, right? So a coach.
Right.
You know, the Cleveland Dobies would be pretty sweet. I think there's a bunch of different ways that they can go. But I think it's okay to move on from certain names that just don't resonate. And you can still reflect your past, and there's nothing wrong with it. But you know, this one doesn't impact me as much if there's still opportunity to show why you got to this place.
About the Cleveland baseball team.
No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough.
Hey, well, I'm part Cherokee. I'm the last generation that can claim tribal rights. So because I'm the last generation, I can't say that, you know, I have grown up having tribal rights or maybe sensitive to this topic. I have very mixed feelings about it. And there's a part of me that's very sad, thinks that there's a loss there. So I don't know. I don't know what's driving it, but I know what's driving it, but I really don't want to see that part of our history erased and traditions completely erased. So there you go.
Well, Paul, for me, if this was to honor their Indian heritage, the Chief Wahoo caricature to me did anything but. And so I don't think they followed through with that traditional honoring with that logo.
Well, they got rid of the Chief Wahoo branding.
Last year. I know they did. But
Chris Phillips just went through a rebranding of a franchise. Chris, talk about, you know, when you're going to change the name of a team, I mean, that was a really difficult process for your franchise.
I mean, it had been been the Sky Sox for 30 years, and people had memories attached to that name and that brand. And, you know, to convince the community that, you know, as we're moving into a new era with a new team and a new league, you know, we knew internally that rebranding was 100% the right thing to do, for a couple reasons. One of them, to be able to re-engage with the community and say, here's what's happening. And part of it was an education process to say, here's why we're doing it. Here's what the new league is. Here's what the new team's going to look like. And it was a way for us to be able to use that platform as our voice to say, here's all the new stuff happening. You know, but, you know, minor league baseball, you know, we're something that was drilled into my head from day one, with my mentor in the business, Todd Parney, as he's known in minor league baseball ranks, was, you know, we are in the memory making business, and we've got to figure out a way to be able to provide these memories for our community members. And so when we talked about it, and we Rocky Mountain Vibes was we had no idea. We had no idea what to rebrand the team as. I had no idea. There was no lightning bolt idea that was like, that's the right name. And so it was a really interesting, arduous process to go through to figure out something that's going to be relatable, something that's going to reflect the region, something that's going to be family friendly, something that's going to be able to be a brand that we can build a story behind. And that was the one thing that was missing with the Sky Sox. I mean, you know, nothing against the brand, the name. I mean, Spill, you play for the team. I mean, but there was nothing, it didn't mean anything. Like, what the hell is a Sky Sox? And it was just White Sox, Red Sox, Sky Sox, because we're in the, I mean, there was nothing there that you could build around. We had a great mascot. Sox the Fox was great, but why the hell did we have a Sox? I mean, it was just a fox that named with Sox, and it was like, so there was no real way to build a story around it. And now we can do that, and we can get families engaged, and we can get kids to buy into the brand. And I'll real quick, you know, story behind that is we hired the company Brandios to help with the creative part of the logo and everything like that. And they're great. And we flew them in for I wanted them to see the city and to see some of the landmarks and to really figure out how we tell this story. And so we had them in some focus groups with some of our key sponsors, and they wouldn't let us into any of these focus groups. So of course, as soon as they're out, I'm like, well, what the hell do people say? And they're like, well, good news is like, everybody loves you guys. You're great at customer service. You know how to put it on an event. And I'm like, okay, that's good. What's the bad news? And they're like, well, there's no magic. And I'm like, oh, it's like a punch in the gut. I'm like, that's what minor league baseball is supposed to be about, is all the magic and like, just bringing that experience to life. So that's the direction that we went. And that was the motivating factor to really kind of get creative and make it more Disney and make it more fun and interactive and have s'more stations at the ballpark and, those types of things that we weren't able to do with the Sky Sox. So it's going to be different with every market. It's going to be different with every team and every story they're trying to tell. But I was really proud of what we came up with, going through that process.
That's great insight. Herb Shankman, is your mic open? Alex,
it is not, Dan. I'm asking him to unmute it.
Okay.
My mic is open.
Herb, I hope you don't mind. First of all, for everybody who doesn't know, this is our 89-year-old treasure. One of the really phenomenal reasons for being a part of SABR is the camaraderie. And Herb Shankman's one of the finest human beings I've ever met. We are linked because my first boss was actually one of the guys who signed him for the Boston Braves at the time. Herb, I would love for you to tell the story of how you got signed by the Braves organization. It is one of the greatest baseball stories I've ever heard. Knowing you and how humble you are, I bet you haven't told this story to the group. I'd love to hear you tell the story.
Well, I go back to 1948, and I graduated high school. Never played baseball in high school because I was too small. I'm even smaller now. But my best friend was invited to the Boston Braves tryout camp that they ran for all of the high school players and college players in New England. And he came back the first day from the tryout, and I asked him how it was, and he started rambling about all players that were there, which was all a lie. But I asked him if he thought they would mind if I came down to chase the foul balls. And he said, no, I don't think so. So I went down the next morning, sat behind the dugout because I wasn't invited on the field. But the head scout for New England at that time was Jeff Jones. And he came out of the dugout, started to count the kids that he had. And he only had at that time 13 kids from high schools and a couple from college throughout New England. So he looked at me sitting in the stands and he says, hey, can you play? So I said, yes, I can. And he said, well, go around to the locker room. The locker room manager at the time was a fellow named Joe Taylor. And he said, tell Joe to give you a uniform. So I went in, and I think you all might have heard of, or you remember, Walker Cooper.
Sure.
Hall of Famer, right?
Was about 6'2", weighed 215 or 20 pounds. That's whose uniform they gave me. I was at 137 pounds then.
I was going to say, okay.
And I was afraid to come out on the field. I mean, the crotch was about down to the ground. I had long sleeve shirt like Joe McCarthy. Only it happens to be the shirt in the picture behind me. But anyway, they gave me uniform. I made finally, I think there were about 50 boys that came. He asked me what position I played, the scout. And I said, I pitch. And of course, at 137 pounds in a uniform that was for a 215 pounder, you know what I looked like. And I think that even dimmed his thought about me being a pitcher. But anyway, the routine was that they played games every day until they had each pitcher who was invited pitched 3 innings in a game. So I was the first day, the last pitcher to get in naturally. I had one hell of a day. 3 innings, no hits, 9 strikeouts.
Whoa.
Yeah, true. So the next day, the same routine. I didn't have as good a day. I didn't give up any hits. A couple of guys did hit the ball, but not well. On the 3rd day, they decided that maybe I ought to have a uniform to fit me. So I got, actually it's the shirt behind me, but that happens to be Johnny Sain's shirt. And the pants they gave me, and I gave it no thought at that time, belonged to Warren Spahn. And his name is sewn, of course, in the back of the pants because in those days it was wool uniforms. They couldn't wash them. They had to dry clean them. And the only way you could tell whose uniform was who with the pants was they embroidered a name in the back. But anyway, I did go the full week. At the end, I went back in to change, and Dan's friend, Roland Heeman, came to me in the locker room and wanted to know if I had anything left because the head of player personnel for the Braves wanted to see me. So I went back out with the catcher, warmed up on the warning track, and the head of the farm system at the time was up at the top, and they signaled me when to start. And I threw my first pitch, and I looked back up, he was gone. Anyway, I went back in, showered, changed, and Roland said they want to see you in the office. And at that point, they asked me if I was interested in signing with the Boston Braves. And I was the only kid who they selected out of all of those that had been invited. And I was never invited. So that was
great stuff, man.
my style.
Wow. Herb, thank you for telling that. Everybody, you have to understand, Herb and I are super close. I love this man. The man who signed him was my first boss. So there is such a link there. And when he told me the story, I thought it was so special, but he's so humble. He would never tell that story if not prompted. And I really wanted all of you to hear this wonderful way that he got the job that, you know, he what'd you pitch? Herb, 9 years? You had 9 years of your career, right?
Six.
Okay, started in Bluefield and then Quebec, right?
Bluefield, Quebec. Then a couple of years in the Army. I was drafted after my second year.
Yeah.
And the second year, I had a pretty good year.
So I tell somebody a few years ago that I met Herb, And Herb, I relayed this to you, so I'm not out of school here. They said to me he had the nastiest curveball, and he also had the best pickoff move. So Herb, tell the story about the pickoff move after your career is over.
Well, I was the same scout, Jeff Jones, asked if I was interested in going to spring training as a coach to work with and teach left-handers their move to first. And I didn't think too long because I didn't consider at that time much of a job with a future. Because the average ball club then had one, maybe two lefties as pitchers on the roster.
Herb, what year was that?
The year they asked me to go to spring training?
Yeah.
1959.
And you signed in 50, you signed in 50 or 51?
I signed in 50 for the 51 season.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was after I quit that they asked me to come down. So, but that's
awesome story, Herb.
Maybe,
awesome story.
Maybe, there might be a future now on that kind of job, but there wasn't then.
I love it. Herb, you are a jewel for our chapter, and I'm so thrilled to have you as a friend and to have you tell that story. That's just an amazing story. Anybody else have anything? It's just after 2. It might be a good time after that wonderful story to call it a day. Anybody else have anything?
Dan, do we have time for you to talk about the Field of Dreams, or you want to save that? I'd like to hear.
I could talk about the Field of Dreams. As most of you know, for the last 2 years or so, I've been consulting for the Field of Dreams. We were really lucky. COVID knocked us out, knocked everybody out. The August 13th game wasn't played, but I did a lot of negotiating for the last 4 or 5 months, and we are in fact going to have the Yankee White Sox game August 12th, the Thursday, in Dyersville at the Field of Dreams site. Ballpark's built. We're really excited. There's going to be about 20,000 people in the town square of Dyersville. Pretty extraordinary. The Baseballism store is vibrant on the site. We're stunned. It's exceeded all expectations. And about 2 months ago, I was able to negotiate a deal where Baseball Factory, really well-respected and renowned group that will conduct tournaments in Dyersville and at the Field of Dreams for 100 dates in 2021. And it's really exciting. We've got full support from Major League Baseball, an extraordinary amount of support from various companies and vendors, and really trying to never get away from the iconic, idyllic nature of the Field of Dreams site. We're keeping it pristine and clean, no billboards, no ads, nothing like that, and just keeping it to be a really special place. The other thing we did, you ask, is we remodeled a 160-year-old barn, and now it has seating capacity for 250 people, so we can do special events at the Field of Dreams. So we're going to do fantasy camps. We're going to do some really amazing things at the Field of Dreams. And that's why I'm really respectful of what Spilly's doing, Greg, because what he's doing, I mean, we have a different venue. You know, we're more of a destination site, but Spilly's creating much of what we're creating with the best interests of the kids and the families in mind. And one of the things we did, which really touched my heart, is when Spilly talked about the Miracle League. We have a Miracle League diamond already built in Dubuque. And we were really excited about that because, like Spilly said earlier, those kids and their families just have a difficult time 24/7. So I'm really excited about what's going on, Greg, at the Field of Dreams, and it's become a real legacy piece, and it's really a lot of fun being able to pass on to the kids and their families the love that I have for baseball and softball and how good it's been for me.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Anybody else? I think we're good. I want to thank Chris Phillips, Chris Moyer. I want to thank Ryan Spillborghs, and I want to thank the fact that the guests all stayed throughout the entire call, and the comments we had afterwards were just as fun. And a special thank you to Herb Shankman for that absolutely awesome story. That was incredible. Wishing everybody a happy holiday, regardless of what holiday you observe. Wishing you all good health. Wishing you a really good ending to the 2020 calendar year, and really looking forward to seeing all of you again sometime soon, whether it's virtually or in person. This is a terrific chapter, and the camaraderie is what makes it so special. Thanks, everybody. Have a good holiday.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Chris.
No
Thanks, Herbie. Happy Hanukkah, Herbie.
Same to you, Paul.
Oh, man.